Hi Rob, this is Raphael. This is me just talking through the workflow to some of your questions regarding setting up a map for weather-related news that you want your students to be involved in. This is our discussion thread that we've been having on this, so I'm trying to sort of pick up on some of the comments here about how to set this up and the workflow I've used, which might help you. So you asked about setting up a file using CSV or in a spreadsheet. So the first thing you do is you type in the first column here in the spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet here, the titles that you want for your various fields or columns. So you might have, you said something about title, I'm not sure if you want title or site or something like that. You might have a description about the weather, for example, temperatures in a unit like degrees Celsius, rainfall. You talked about having an image URL in, the different ways you can achieve different things, whether you want a URL or ability to upload, so I'll talk about both of them. But I'll put the option for your image URL in, a hyperlink, longitude, latitude, and so on. It's very important that you set up some address field, even if you don't put any values into it, even if you leave these blank. If it doesn't have the words longitude, latitude, or a postcode, it won't let you set up the feature service in ArcGIS Online, so those two are quite important. Now you obviously, theoretically, you could have data within the whole spreadsheet which is already filled in and bring that directly in, but you can also use this completely blank, as I'm going to do here, just to set up the different fields. The next thing you need to do is save it in the right format, so it would normally be saved as a Excel file. And if I just saved it somewhere, you notice that under the choice of options for saving Excel workbooks, you've got lots of different options here, and this is the one you need to pick that I've highlighted now. It's CSV, delimited. So I'd pick that as my my option for saving, and give it a name. I've already named this one Test 2 Weather Features for Rob, so I'll save that again. Replace the one I've done. It gives me this kind of warning message saying some features might be lost if you save it as CSV, which is fine. It's not got all the functionality of a full Excel workbook, but for what we're doing, it's perfect. Now, there are different ways of bringing this into ArcGIS Online, but the way I quite like doing it still is this way. Just because I know it's going to sort of set it out properly for me. So I'm just going to put this in one of my mini folders here as a test map. So I go to the add item from my computer, and I need to find the file. So the file is there, Test 2 Weather Features for Rob, that I've just made for you. And it's going to look at it and analyse that file and just make sure it's got the right kind of information and fields, like I said, including longitude, latitude in there. If it had data in again, it would try and recognise what type of data it is, whether it's numbers or words and so on. So at the moment it's all blank, so it's going to do its best guess. So I'll just put a tag in, which I'll just put test, and I'll put Rob in here. Doesn't matter too much, but it can help you search for layers later. It will say publish this layer as a feature layer, which is automatically ticked. I want to keep that. I could just save it as a CSV file and have it as like a stored document on online here, but actually I want to create a feature service out of it as well. Then it's got various things you can control for the field. So title, if I go under it, it says string. String means a whole load of words or letters, so that's fine. The other options you can see here include single, which I think is a number field. Date is obvious, and then you've got small integer and double integer. I don't know the difference between all of these, but I do know that if you put an integer in, basically you can put a number like 1, 2, 3, but you can't put 1.5, for example, in. If you put double, you can put 0.5, 1.5, and so on in there as fraction values, decimal points. So if you were doing degrees Celsius and you didn't want them to put fractions in, you'd put a number. So integer, it would be like 23 degrees, and they wouldn't allow them to put 0.4. And if you want them to be able to put something like 0.4 in, you pick double. So I tend to pick double most of the time. That's the reason I want to restrict it. And string for text, and date for a date field. So I don't tend to use the others, but there are subtle differences between them. So this is text, so it's going to be string. It's already recognised it as you can see a string, and that's correct by making some kind of guesses about what it's like. Description about the weather, they can put in some sentences there. String. Temperature, it says it's a string as well, so it doesn't know that this should really be a number, so I'm going to put in double here. Rainfall in millimetres, I'm going to put in a double as well, so that lets them put numbers in like 2.2 millimetres. Image URL is going to be a string, hyperlink is going to be a string, it's just text. Longitude, latitude is double because it would be in lots of decimal points to correct location, but as I say, they're relatively irrelevant at that stage, but it does require you to have them. So when I'm happy that I've set that up correctly, which I have in this case, I'm going to add item, and again it does a little bit of work in the background to actually create a feature service out of this, which is now a map layer as opposed to just a CSV file. So you can see it wearing away a little bit here. So this is a really important stage because it means it's created as a proper feature service, which means I can bring it in and out of multiple maps. It's not just located or embedded in one single map, and it has various other qualities of feature services, such as being able to have multiple users use it online and so on. So it's done this feature service which it's created. You'll see it's created the name for it here, which is the same as my CSV file, and it's once it's got data in, I can actually use that little arrow to export it. So I could export the data out into a spreadsheet or something else if I so wished, and turn it into a shapefile and various other things. It's also got this thing called enable attachments. It may be that what you're trying to do is get students to actually upload a file that they've taken on a camera and put on their computers, which has a photo in, and then they don't have a Flickr account or anything else to put their photos in. So this will actually allow them to upload the image or any other document onto here and store it in ArcGIS Online account. So it means that's one way of getting the photos. So I'm going to click that one, enable attachments on there. And then I've got the choice to disable it if I want to later. The other things that are important to set on here are sharing functions. So at the moment this feature layer is not shared, and if you want it to be shared you can share it with various organisations or groups. Normally you share it with everyone unless it's confidential, otherwise it might end up causing you problems with people who are trying to get to it and not logging in and so on. But of course if it's more confidential information you could share it with particular groups, just like your organisation only, or people of certain groups. So I've shared it with everyone to make sure it works as flexibly as possible. The other thing I go for is edit here. I've got the obvious stuff, editing the title of it and description of this layer, so I could say that this feature layer contains whatever I want to say about it, information on weather for students to enter over the summer, and put certain constraint information on there if I so wish in terms of copyright and credits. You can have delete protection, which means it helps prevent accidental deletion in your organisation of this. The other thing is editing, enable editing. If you haven't clicked this, then people won't be able to change and edit features. That's really important. Export data, again, allows you to send the data out once it's finally been used. That's not probably so essential, but probably no harm clicking it. And the sync is quite important. If you are going to get students to work offline for some reason on a document, then that's quite important to allow students perhaps to use the collector app and then enter data offline and then resync it afterwards. So I'll keep that option open. It doesn't do probably very much harm to have it. You can track edits as well if you want to see who's doing what and when, but I'll leave that one for the moment. So you'd save those particular settings within the feature layer, and they were all under the edit section here. So now I've set up the feature layer as I want it. I don't really need to do much else with it. So I'm now going to open the feature service into a new map and show you how to then set the map up, because feature services is just a layer, and in order to use the layer you actually have to put them into maps so that students can do things with it. So what's it doing? Okay, I'm going to cancel that. So it tried to sort of visualize the data with some symbols. It sort of thought I'd had temperature data and that would look nice with proportional symbols, but I can ignore that. As you can see, there's clearly no data at all in this, so it doesn't really matter. So at the moment I've got this feature service, absolutely no data in it, completely blank, and the various drop-down menus here, including enabling disable editing, which I set in the features before, but you could switch it on and off here as well, changing styles and stuff which you're familiar with on there. Okay, so the next thing to do is to actually put some data in so we can see what it looks like. So I can go under edit here, new feature, click a feature in, and I've got a title like bath weather, and description, what a lovely day, temperatures 20.5 degrees, rainfall 2.4 degrees, and so on. Now you can see if I had not set it as double, it wouldn't let me put these decimal points in. Image URL, so let's go to the internet. Let's find a picture. Images. Okay, so this is where you talked about wanting some images in. So if it was doing it this kind of way, where you've either got images that students have uploaded or images you want to get in this kind of way from public areas, then you can copy the image URL in. You've got a field which is ready to accept it, so you can go paste, and that's where that's in. And similarly, if you wanted to have a hyperlink to something, so some site with data or information, so I'll put the Met Office in for the moment as my hyperlink field. There, longitude, latitude, you don't have to do anything with that, you keep that blank. It's obviously positioned manually in this case, and you can see here, because I've enabled attachments, it also allows me to upload files. So if I wanted to now do it differently and actually sort of find an image or a picture in my normal file library, I could do that and upload that file in that sort of manner, rather than going through the URL route, or perhaps a mixture of both. So that's why I was suggesting you might be interested in that. I'll close that one. So you can see you don't actually have to save any of the data. It's as you know, I think you've got all that information now in there and ready saved. So that's one feature, and you can create another one, and so on, so on. So this is what you might do just to with your students. For inputting the data, it might be that you just want to share the map like this with them and share the data. You also asked about the idea of configuring the pop-up, which I think you've worked out now. So I go into the layer submenu here and go to configure pop-up, and you can configure what's being shown. So for example, here it's quite unnecessary to show longitude, latitude. It could confuse people, so I can just switch them off under the ones that are displayed, and all the others are fine to keep. I say OK. If I save that pop-up, you should be able to see the difference now. You can see that it's got rid of the longitude, latitude information from there. Similarly, if you wanted to show, configure pop-up, if you wanted to show the picture as an actual image, it's got quite nice functionality here. You go to add image under this bottom section of the menu. You can give it a title if you want, so photo, and caption something like weather today, of photos students taken, and then you can then actually add one of the fields to it. So the field is going to be my image URL. Let's have a look if it's just wondering off the top of my head if the attachment would show. I think if you put an attachment, it will just give you a link to it. I can't see it there. Okay, so I'll go to the image URL. So I'm not sure if you can just how easy it would be to display the attachment as a sort of image in the same way as doing this, and you could have a link. I'll leave it as that for the moment, and I'll save that pop-up. And now you can see the effect here if I click on this one, that it's got it hasn't got the longitude, latitude as I said before, and it's got the photograph here that was linked. It's the same as this URL. If I click on this, it will open the image here within the web site, and so on. The hyperlink will open the Met Office website. So those are quite nice interactivity features. And attachments, there's no attachment to find. So if I had uploaded a document, I can't remember off the top of my head whether it will just give it a file name, which I then click and it will open as a separate tab, or whether it will actually display it like an image, a bit like this. I'd have to experiment to be sure, but it'll be obvious when it does it, which way it does. I think it's just a list of documents. So that's the basic setup here. The next stage, I think, for you is just to think about how you want students to enter the data. So you've got it all set up nicely. You've got the option clearly of sharing this map with them and just telling them that they should edit it by clicking on a new feature, clicking a dot, and so on. You've obviously got the slight risk that they could click on this dot and press delete, in which case stuff that is going in could be lost. I have to remember whether there's a way of restricting that with the tracking edits. I think you can have, yes, under the menu you can have it so you can only add or delete features that you've inputted and not other people. So it's under the controls of that feature service that I showed you before. But I won't go back to that, but do ask if that's not obvious later. But so that's one option anyway. As I say, most of the time that's fine, and they won't delete layers that are there anyway. But you can just leave them to input data. You might think that this kind of layout is a bit clunky for them to input data on, so you've got a couple of other options. One is to get them to do it in the collector app, which you mentioned. So that means they have to download and have the collector app on a device of some kind, phone or iPhone or iPad and so on. I believe it's on Android devices as well. Or they would then have to log in to sign into the actual app, because it requires sort of organisation permissions to be able to use it. And once they're signed in, they'd have to be able to access the map. And the only way they'd be able to access it is either by signing in exactly the same as you, which is probably not ideal, which means they'd have access to all the maps that you've set up, as if you had signed into it, as you'd kind of created this map, or you would share it. What have I done here? You need to save this map. I haven't saved it yet. Brand new map. Okay, save as. So this is my test map for Rob on weather. Rob test weather. Okay, that'll do. Testing the weather input functions. And I put it in my test folder. So this is just saving the map. You know about saving maps. Various folders, save it in, I'll put it there. So coming back to what I was saying before with the sharing functions. So this map itself, again, you need to think how you share it for different access. So if you're getting students to maybe just get to it, you're giving them a link and you just want them to go and input data, then make sure it's shared with everyone. If there's no reason not to share it with everyone, it's probably the best thing to do. You can additionally share it with groups, and this is where, if they were using the collector app, which I was mentioning before, and logging in, if they were also a member of a group you set up, just like you set up for me to be part of a group, and you invited them and accepted them into the group and gone through that sort of procedure, so they're all part of a group, then if you ticked it onto groups, so if I tick this one onto our Why Won't It Work group, then when they do log into the app on their tablets or phones, then they will be able to see their maps and maps that they have groups that they're shared with, in which case this map will appear there, which will allow them to do it on the app if you wanted them to use the collector app for some reason to input the data, if you felt that was kind of a neat and tidy or easy way for them to access it. So that's the way to do it, the trick. You have to make sure it's linked to a group, and then of course they just need an organisation, they need a login for your organisation, and make sure they're linked to that group which you've set up. So there's a little bit of kind of steps to make sure that all works. For collector app, it's a little bit of a fiddle to make sure it all set up. It's not quick and easy. It's just sharing it with everyone and then giving them the link like this, and sharing that out, copy, and then they just go online. I just new tab, paste, and the map comes up again for them without any restrictions, because it's all shared online. You shared the feature service online, which means that anyone public can get to it, that particular dot layer, and the map as well. You have to remember to share that as well. So both things are shared, which means that it'll all open, and anyone on the internet can open it and add to it. Of course, there's a risk that anyone could open and add to it, but it's probably quite unlikely to cause you problems. So mostly it's just going to be people you shared it with, your students. There is one other option you might want to consider, which makes it slightly neater. So under the options of sharing, you've also got to make a web application. You can only do this once you've shared it with everyone. So make a web application is here. Various apps you can use. I think the one I'm thinking of using is this Geoform one, which is on the second tab, and we go to publish that. Test map for Rob's. I'll just put the word Geoform at the beginning here, so I know what it's about. Summary, form for testing, and save it in my test area. So that's just giving it a name for this Geoform. Save and publish. I did a little bit of thinking, and this is quite a neat way to get students to add to it. It also means they can't delete things that other people have put in, and they're just focusing on just putting in their data and no other functionality that's in the map. If they went to this sort of normal map layout, which could confuse students and get them stuck. So it depends how easy you want them to use it. So it's a select web map, so it already knows this is a test web map. I could change it, but I'm going to stick with that one. So I'm going to next, select layer. Well, there's only one layer in the map, so it's easy to find, but your map may have multiple layers, but you have to pick the one you want them to enter data for. So there's that one. You may of course just have layers that are just for background data, things you're correlating or comparing with, but this is the one we want them to edit features, so it's the only one showing at the moment anyway, so that's, I put that one in. Next, this is just titles for the form, so student data entry for something or other, weather. You can put links to images in and so on. Please enter your weather data into this form for students and so on, and you can play around with the look of that and the size of the fonts. Then again, it tells you what fields you've got, so you already know you've got the description of weather, temperature, rainfall and so on, the image URL fields, and again you can switch any of these on or off. Obviously the longitude, latitude is not relevant, so I'm going to switch them off. That will reduce any confusion. And then you've got the labels that already exist here, so you can change that, so title of your weather day or whatever it is, or it might be that your title should be the day of the week or something like that, so I might say day of the week here so people know what it's about. You've got hints like what day is it, and date or whatever you want them to put in. Description, temperature, degrees Celsius, rainfall and so on, so again you can type in stuff here if you want or not. Image URL, so this is where you might say copy and paste a website link to an image here. Copy and paste a website here. These two are not going to show, and so on. What's this last? Display as text. Oh yeah, that's fine. Display as. I have to play around with that. Not seen that before. Not sure if that's an update. You can enable, disable attachments here. Let's try this. I haven't tried that before. Enable attachments. I'm sure there's new things I haven't seen before. If necessary, attachment required. So we won't force them to have an attachment, but we'll give them the option to. Attachment button label. So upload your photo here. I haven't tried this before, so that sounds good. Attachment description. If necessary, you can provide additional attachment instructions here. Just put a question mark here, see where it comes out. Upload your photo here. It should be a weather photo. Okay. We'll go to next. You can always edit and change these things if they didn't work. You've got various layout styles, so you can play around with that to your heart's content. And next, option show layer. You configure the Geoform to highlight. Okay, Geoform default map extender stable loader. Okay, that's fine. You can play around with settings. Anything you need to change. You can change these kind of minor options. Search by my location. That's all fine. Base map depends how you want it to look in the background. We'll stick to topographic for now. And that's fine. So it's going to give me a preview now of what the form's going to look like. Relatively straightforward to set up. It looks quite neat. The student data entry form. My students will make sense of that. Please enter your weather data here, and this is what they're going to actually enter the data into, and you can see the sort of hints and so on that we typed in. So it's a very straightforward layout for them now. Upload your photo here, so that was quite nice. The image URL and so on. So that's how you're going to locate data. So I'm happy with that. I can go back and change things if I want, or I can go to next, and then I'm going to save it. And it's giving me a link to the form. So this is the link now that I would have to save to share with people. Let's look what this, show you what this form looks like now. So this is the link I would share out with people, and hopefully it will open a Geoform. They shouldn't need to be logged in or anything, but again, it's something that's worth testing, that it all works with people who are not logged in, just to make sure. So log out and open your browser and check that it opens fine. So day of the week, what are we, Tuesday? Description about the weather, a bit rainy. Temperature 30, not really, 19.6. Rainfall 3.3. Image URL, so that goes back to this whole thing. Let's just test it out. Copy. I'll put, whoops, where am I? That's the hyperlink. Let's put that one in. I was thinking of doing something different, but yeah. Let's go back. Make another rainfall picture. Copy URL. Let's put this URL in. Paste. Okay, so this is the data that doesn't look very nice, does that? Let's find one that's definitely a nice picture with a copy image URL. Let's try that. Paste. Yeah, it's got JPEG at the end. That looks a bit nicer. Upload photos. That's where clearly someone could do that. Let's see if I can pick a photo for fun. Let's try this one. Open. Should be a weather photo. It's not a weather photo, right? Then you can use a locate me button, which is easy for students. Find address by postcode, or just simply zoom to a location and put a dot in. So there we go. Keep manipulating that. If you're not happy with it, change the dot location. When they're happy, submit entry. So you can see that's a very different way of close. It's a very different way of entering data. Close that. From using the map, it's very straightforward, very robust. They can't really delete or change anything here. You can see there's my little entry there. Oops. And if I go back to the maps, let's exit that. Let's get back into ArcGIS Online. Where am I up to now? It's the form. This is the form, right? Let's go back to my map, see if it's still there. Speed, and it hopefully will have 3 dots in it. Nope. Let's go to my content to find the map then, as it's opened a brand new one for me. So where did I put it into test? Student, that's the web map, that's the map, that one. Okay, so let's just open that, see what it looks like. So fingers crossed, what I'm hoping is that student data entry form information has now come into this map. There it is. So now you've got it in the map, but the students haven't entered it. You noticed in the map directly, they use the form to enter it. And if I click on it now, does it look nice? There we go. It's got all the information, and that's what the attachment looks like. And as I said, that's how it'll open. So it is there, it's saved, it's online, but it's not displaying it. I don't know if there's a way to get around that, but you can display the URL that way. So there you go. That's your options there. So I think it'd be easier for students to do it this way, using the student entry form. The student entry form will work on an iPad, a tablet, a phone, internet, any computer. So it's really very robust. It's very easy to share that link with them. I think it's going to be a much easier way to do it than using the collector app, in my mind. But if for some reason you want to do a collector app, you can. But I think it's more fiddly to do essentially what this form can do quite neatly and quite robustly. Or of course you can share it and they can do it within ArcGIS Online directly, as I've shown you here. So I hope that helps you get a feel for the different options of how to set up a feature service. So that was going through setting up the CSV file originally, how to get it into ArcGIS Online using the in your content section as adding a feature, adding a layer, bring it into a map, setting some of the settings for it so it's shareable, and then putting it in a map. Clearly there are quite a few steps, so it does take a while to get used to all these things, but when you do it, becomes quite easy and straightforward, and you know the sort of workflow for it. So hopefully this video will help you understand some mechanisms for doing that and open up lots of opportunities for you to do things nice and easily now, because they will sort of follow the same principles. And of course, just a last thing here, you've got a map, you want to share extra information, find extra information with it. So if I wanted to have something like live weather data as well for some reason in my map, so I can search ArcGIS Online, add this nice little layer in, and now I've got live weather data as well as whatever the students have entered here. Click on the live weather data. I can click a dot, an arrow, and I should pull up information. Why is it not doing that? Maybe not from that file. I know another layer does that. Search for layers. Live weather, go. Let's try that one. Same data. Let's turn that one off. maybe slightly different data. There you go. So it brings up a little pop-up with weather conditions that is current and live. American date format, but it's current and live. But that's quite nice, isn't it? On top of the map and so on, and so you can go on sort of putting other data layers in that complement your students' data information. Of course, the other things you can do is you've got some data in here, and you can change the style of it, as I'm sure you know, and pick some feature like the temperature, and then you've got the temperature data actually shown there for the students. Let's go back, change style, and location only. Okay, save where we're up to. Good, that's all saved for you. That's in the area, and I'll upload this video so you can see it on YouTube, and hopefully that'll help you understand the sort of mechanisms of the workflow, which are quite hard to explain in emails and texts and so on, but hopefully, and certainly on Twitter, but hopefully this will help. Okay, thanks. If you want to email me and contact me, my email directly for longer emails than Twitter is r.heath, Heath, at rhsb.gdst.net. Okay, we'll leave it there for today.